Your input during the public forum portion is important to us. And to ensure that we're all able to fully concentrate on the important business of this meeting and to minimize interruptions, please silence your cell phones now. Get them out and check to make sure so we don't have interruptions. Thank you. First item on the agenda is the roll call, and we have all board members present at this time. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and we are delighted to have Carolina Govea here with us today. Carolina was born in San Marcos and attended De Zavala, Crockett, and Mendes elementary schools. She is an 8th grader at Miller Middle School, where she particularly enjoys band, volleyball, and the yearbook committee. A scholar, Carolina will be inducted into the Miller National Junior Honor Society next Tuesday evening. She wants to be a teacher! And intends to enroll in the Academy of Health and Human Services at San Marcos High School. Presently, Carolina is considering enrollment at the University of Texas upon her graduation. Her proud parents are Noemi and Misael Govea. Are your parents here? No? I was going to say, we want them to stand up, but thank you. Okay. If you will lead us, please, Carolina.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
If your parents aren't here, you better not be driving. You're an 8th grader.
Okay, the next item on the agenda are presentations, recognitions, and awards.
Yes. We're asked Carter Hudson, who's our Director of Transportation, to come up and present the first award, please.
If the board can join me down front, please.
Following the events of March 2nd, 2015, when a crane truck struck a stopped San Marcos CISD school bus, it was the calmness and courage of school bus driver Barrick Fletcher and monitor Julian Rodriguez who brought control and compassion to the Travis Elementary School students riding the bus. The men refused to be treated for their own injuries until they were assured that all the children had been cared for by emergency personnel and were en route to the hospital. Tonight, we owe a debt of great gratitude that we could never repay, and therefore add the names of Barrick Fletcher and Julian Rodriguez to the District Diamond Honor Roll for services and commitment to our children.
Carter. We didn't give them their certificates. Well, I'm excited. I'll tell you what, I heard from our local newspaper that they don't miss the board meetings in April and May because it's the only time they can have a free meal. And I'm not going to tell you it was David Short because I would never say that about David, but that was David. We really, this is one of our most enjoyable board meetings in April because we honor our teachers. Next month, we honor our retirees, and so we have 2 really good months coming up. So we encourage you to be sure and come back next month, also here at Miller, to enjoy that. I am very pleased to be able to introduce right now Amy Stanfield. Amy is the San Marcos Education Foundation Board President. She took on that role and that responsibility just recently, and she replaced Margaret. And Margaret is now stepped down, and she's doing development for San Marcos Education Foundation, has been the president for several years, and Amy has just stepped in and is doing a great job. And we always try to promote the school district. We also promote the businesses. Her husband checked my eyes today, so he did a good job too. So Amy, come on up, please, and introduce.
Thank you, Mark. Since 1969, the Texas State Teacher of the Year program has honored excellence in classroom education and provided a forum to showcase the many outstanding educators whose efforts and examples have inspired their students, their colleagues, and the communities they serve. Margaret's going to come and tell you a little bit about the Education Foundation before we announce the winners.
Approximately 20 years ago, the San Marcos Education Foundation was created to provide assistance to and generate financial support for the San Marcos CISD. The foundation provides funds that are not available through the district's normal operations. And these activities are designed to facilitate student achievement, to recognize and encourage staff excellence, and to provide a vital link between the community and the classroom. The foundation is a nonprofit, tax-exempt corporation operating independently with its own board of volunteer directors, and they are dedicated to supporting excellence in education. And at this time, I'd like to ask those board members that are here tonight as volunteers to stand and be recognized. Y'all, please give them a hand of applause. At this time, I'd like to invite Karen Mostyn, who is relatively a new board member, to come up and do the recognition of these Teachers of the Year for us. Thanks.
Hello. The Education Foundation has been really busy gathering all these gifts that you see up here today. There's 24 members on the foundation, and we need to give credit where credit's due. The San Marcos Chamber of Commerce, Premier Outlets, Tanger Outlets, 2Ps and Callies, Texas State University, and the Dean of College of Education, Wonder World Park, the Meadows Center, San Marcos Lions Club, Dick's Classic Car Museum, Texas State Optical, Robbie Wiley of Century 21, Gary Job Corps Center, Frost Bank, Mark and Linda Jalufka from Keller Williams Realty, A+ Federal Credit Union, Brenda Dameron of the Dameron Group, Randolph Brooks Federal Credit Union, Frost Bank, Maxine's Floral Studio, HEB, and Frugoni. There's also a proclamation from the governor behind your bags and a letter from Lloyd Doggett in Washington, D.C. Last but not least, also there's San Marcos Record donated the papers so that you can keep a little memorabilia. Last but not least, inside your bag is a check from the San Marcos Education Foundation. Now, enjoy all those gifts, but when you get home tonight, please go through it carefully. Don't start tossing and throwing things around. There are envelopes, there are brochures, there are bags, and everything has something important inside. So enjoy.
Thank you, Karen. Karen worked very hard to get all those bags together. Tonight, with the additional support of the San Marcos Education Foundation, San Marcos CISD is proud to recognize the following teachers
who have been chosen by their peers to represent their campuses. Bonham Pre-K School, Erica Phelan. Bowie Elementary, Rose Berglund. Crockett Elementary, Erica Wanner. De Zavala Elementary, Angie Lassiter. Hernandez Elementary, Leah Murphy. Mendez Elementary, Jade Munoz. Travis Elementary, Emilio Gonzalez. Goodnight Middle School, Martin Ruiz. Miller Middle School, Monica Martin. San Marcos High School, Ryan Randolph. Alternative Phoenix, Gina Guzman. You ready? Okay. Our 2015 Elementary Teacher of the Year is Rose Berglund. And our 2015 Secondary Teacher of the Year is Ryan Randolph.
sister Martha and I, Martha used to work, she's worked for the Attorney General's office for 20 plus years, but she used to work part-time in the hospital and been through a mission trip to Honduras with her.
Really?
Yeah.
You said Honduras. You know, Daniel Guerrero just came back from Honduras.
It's the second time.
Yeah, what is?
He's been, yeah.
Does
Just
CTMC
three.
just sponsor?
They go, no, it's, they go,
Thank
bye-bye,
you.
they go twice a year. It's typically April, and typically, they didn't go for about a year because of insecurity. Pretty dangerous place.
But see, like when Shauna goes on mission trips, it costs me like $3 or $4 grand. So same thing as CTMC.
Yeah, they, you know, as an
Wonderful.
employee, you know, they'll give you so many
Backpack.
days off to do it, where you don't have to take so many days of leave, but I think I still spent $1,000 to
Yes.
be hot and sweaty and not eat meat, you know?
Plenty of seats at the beginning.
Sean
I mean,
go?
kind of like a
Where
church
does Sean go?
service.
They go to police.
Oh, Belize, okay.
Where do you go to church? Not my church.
And they need lots of dietitian work over there. One of the biggest things they give out is the drugs for worms.
Oh yeah, we gave almost everybody. It's, yeah. The
Steve?
recommendations are every is pastillas para parasitas, which is parasites.
I don't
Yeah, you give everybody. Yeah, and your wife's seen it, but one time Jim said, "Oh, you gotta see this, John." And anyway, it was typical to see what people were saying when they have rectum. But sometimes you actually get the large tape ones, and you can see them coming up through the throat. Yeah.
Oh, John.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen them like.
Oh.
No. It's like, are you sure you wanted to go back down there? You know?
No. Rose taught
No.
one person.
You know that CTMC took a lady home a couple years ago, Dewey Wiesner, who's doesn't work at CTMC anymore yet, the new administration. He left. He was the head of the nursing department there for years, but when his wife works at Texas State, she's an intern. They're both internal medicine. He works at Texas State, he does PR stuff, but we found a girl went and saw him.
He'd probably say, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, she arranged for, she didn't have a passport, whatever. They went on thyroid cancers like colon cancer. They arranged for her to come back and get all her treatment between CTMC and also a little bit with the Baptist Hospital. They did some radioactive, but anyway, they she was basically getting death sentence there. They figured her, 10-year survivability was better than 90%. They donated it all. She got her place to stay. So they flew her up here and she stayed through.
Okay, thank you to all the teachers.
And she said she'd seen other people who were frustrated that people just kept calling her and couldn't help them. They're like, no, we can help her.
Dr. Allen?
Thank you. I asked for a minute.
Just a minute, let's wait till everybody quiets down.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. I asked for a minute to speak to the board and to the people that are here because this is my last meeting. I will not be in town in May when the new person is elected will take office, and I'm sorry that I'll miss that meeting. So this is my last opportunity to represent you as on the Board of Trustees. And I want to thank you for your support over 4 terms. As I reflect back over it, 12 years. The seniors now were in first grade when I took office. And as I think about that, I think we have come a long way in 12 years, and I know we're going a lot farther. But I'm really proud of San Marcos and the citizens of our school district who have supported the bonds, and we've been able to make tremendous improvement in our facilities. And I'm really excited about our pre-K program and where that's going to take us in the future. I believe the faculty, staff, from the janitorial to the bus drivers to the maintenance to the teachers to administration, they are outstanding. And I believe that they are truly committed to our children. And I know they work very hard. I know that our test scores are improving as we face changes nearly every year in what's expected of our teachers and our students. with decreased funding, more and more changes, but yet we've continued to make progress, and I know in the future we will continue. I think we're very fortunate to have one of the top 5 superintendents in the state as recognized this last year, and I think with him and our faculty and staff, we have great things ahead of us. So I just want to say I'm looking forward to the next chapter for the school district, and I want to thank you for your support over the last 12 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. The next item on the agenda is the public forum. Our first speaker is Grace Miller. She will be speaking about teacher appraisals.
And Susan Seaton is going to be standing with me. We usually like to show a little bit of solidarity, and I think Beth Wiltman would be here too if she could. I'm Grace Miller San Marcos, CTA president and a district teacher of 30 years. I'd like to say thank you, first of all, for the waiver on the test scores that you approved last month for the pilot T-test, which is, for all of you other guys, the Texas Teacher Evaluation and Support System. That will be our new appraisal system. I understand the need for saving money for the district when training administrators. Teachers know that the appraisal is imminent, but in no way do we condone correlating student scores on a one-day test to the effectiveness of instruction. Even if you have never taken a class in statistics, it's easy to see that the uncontrolled variables are numerous and therefore can make the correlation an invalid and unreliable task. Let's take the day of assessment, for example. Some of the uncontrolled variables that we see that interrupt testing on the day: illness, headache, cramps, fever. The importance of attending is very important, and most come even when ill. Family violence or abuse, quiet sleeping arrangements, substance abuse, test anxiety, couple breakups, just to name a few of things. There are also many uncontrolled variables that influence the learning environment as well. Changes in administration, lack of discipline support, classroom size, the number of individual special needs in the classroom, parental support, absenteeism, and funding. The student makeup of a classroom is not standardized. Teachers sometimes choose to work with students who struggle, and they should not be punished because a one-day score did not meet the standards on a questionable test. The test itself has been under fire by parent groups as well as researchers. It has been written by UT Professor of Education Walter Stroop that the scores have relatively little to do with whether the kids know math, English, social studies, or science. He continues to say that the performance being measured is how good kids are at taking these particular tests. In a test-making graduate class I had, my professor remarked that if a large number of students are failing a test, a good teacher will look at the test for problems. In the case of the STAR, students and teachers are being blamed for low scores when in fact, Pearson should be looking at the construction of the test. Parents and researchers have also found the test to be developmentally inappropriate. Children's minds are not mature enough for each grade level to process the large amount of rigorous standards, let alone master them. Low SES students often have a less chance of mastering these standards because of the complexity of the tests. On top of that, the test requires the student to sit for long hours, reading numerous passages or wordy math problems that include field test items, and be expected to maintain focus. Even for the most advanced, it is tiring and difficult to maintain the focus they need to correctly answer complex and confusing questions. The STAR has become a stamina test as well. Commissioner Williams and the legislature are focused on the idea of increasing rigor. Rigor is not a multiple choice test that can last for many hours. Rigor is teaching the student the capacity to analyze and solve problems, to create and to innovate. The saying in GT and pre-AP circles is that rigor isn't just about giving a student more of something. In conclusion, judging students and teachers on a one-day test is demoralizing. It draws the focus of learning from a personal exploration and initiative to a narrow focus of test-taking skills. All to please legislators who, beyond their own experience in school, may not have set foot in a classroom for many years. These tests are becoming punitive, not diagnostic, and will inflict harm on our children if the status quo continues. Any state test should be used as a measuring stick to target needed improvement, not as a weapon against teachers and children who are doing their best against challenging odds. Accountability seems to be the buzzword of those who fancy this test of learning. Teachers don't need a punitive state assessment to be accountable. We are our own worst critic. Our students' failure hurts, and teachers will work hours to come up with other strategies to help their students. Improvement can sometimes take years, but we don't give up. Current bills that will help improve the amount and length of testing. House Bill 742 eliminates grade 4 through 7 writing assessments as well as 8 social studies science. House Bill 743 dictates that state assessments have to be determined valid and reliable by an institution outside of TEA. It also reduces the length of the test, therefore reducing time needed to take the test. House Bill 1164 has a writing assessments are being done locally and not with state assessments. As you can see, the emphasis is there for a more valid accountability system. The old adage is true. It does take a village to raise a child, not just a teacher and a one-day test.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Susan Seaton, and she's speaking on salaries, health care, and benefits.
Thank you. And Grace Miller, my partner in crime and support, will be here with me also. We're coming to you as the Teachers Associations in San Marcos. I want to talk to you about San Marcos being the learning community of Texas. If we're going to be the learning community of Texas and we want to attract the best and brightest and keep the employees that we currently have, you need to know a little bit about benefits, salaries, and health care versus a budget. A benefit is defined by the dictionary as a payment or gift made by an employer, the state, and/or an insurance company. In San Marcos, many good things are happening. We have some benefits. The district provides the leadership and the direction. However, the employees of our district are the integral part of this community that lets the learning happen. When you offer a raise each year, we are thankful, we are grateful, and we know that it is with much thought on the budget that we get it. But when you offer a raise, but yet you don't increase the benefit package, salaries actually decrease. When an employee's health care cost goes up to as much as $1,200 a month for someone who covers their entire family, that's a mortgage. That's no longer a benefit. The state contribution has been unchanged at $75 a month since 2002. Our district contribution has remained unchanged, I know, since at least 2007 when I started with this district. But yet the employee cost and burden has increased up to 290% in the last 5 years. We are the lowest in all of our surrounding districts. There are many other benefits to working in SMCISD. We are grateful that we have jobs and we serve our students and we work in a wonderful district. We would like it to remain that way. When you start talking later tonight and start evaluating the proposals for next year, I want you to think about a few things. Have you ever been on a bus full of students? Have you ever seen the hungry faces that the cafeteria employees feed every single day, and the faces of those children who may not know if they get dinner, and those cafeteria people supply the only food that they may get? Have you ever mopped a classroom or dusted or did deep cleaning when the flu epidemic is coming on? Have you ever been in a kindergarten classroom of 24 students trying to do an engagement project without enough supplies, without enough textbooks? According to the poll done by the University of Houston, the average teacher in Texas spends $700 per year of their own money to supply their classrooms. We are those people. We're not a statistic. We're not a number on a budget worksheet. We are the employees of San Marcos CISD, and we need your support at the board level. We have invested in buildings. We have been in partnership with you on the bond proposal. It's time to invest in us. We call on you for a fair salary that is competitive with our surrounding districts. We deserve a fair healthcare contribution. We want you to value the employees of this district. Some may ask why we stay. I'll answer simply. We bleed purple, we love our district, and most of all, we love our students. We want it to be a good day to be a Rattler. So please remember those words when we start talking about salaries, healthcare, and benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third speaker is Todd Salmi, and he's speaking on the new Central Administration Building.
Good evening. My name is Todd Salmi, and I know many of you on the board personally, and I know your dedication to education. And many of you know me. You know I'm a friend to the district, that I'm a parent of kids in school here, and that I'm actively engaged in our local schools. Momentum in our school district has been moving in the right direction, a very positive direction focused on excellence in education. But recently we've drifted, and we're in danger of getting deeply stuck off track. We've gotten mired down in selling long-term real estate assets and planning new administration buildings. The board demonstrated leadership last month in tabling the new $6 million central administration building. The board rightly realized that while perhaps it could be a good idea at some point in the future, a new central office is not the right priority at this specific time. And yet, here it is again on the agenda tonight. And what has been accomplished in this past month? Well, the board did have a special called Workshop on Facilities, meaning that there have been 3 school board meetings in the past 4 weeks, specifically dominated by buildings. And yet much of the voter-approved bond work still remains unfinished, including at this campus at Miller Middle School. And what good are these buildings if we do nothing about the growing dropout rate? Where is the strategic public conversation and planning as this board initiative around the 8th and 9th grade performance gap? It's very disappointing that we're here repeating the same agenda item. Agenda item that offers to double down on the construction approach that has already proven that it's been pushed beyond effectiveness. It's caused deep concern in the community, it's way off schedule, and it's taken away time from discussing academics. Is this the best we can do? We need to return to the momentum of classroom excellence, which we did well launching from the school board efforts, school bond efforts. And I encourage you, our board members, to give leadership to the district administrators. Since we have this fund balance, investing in student performance is the right priority at this particular moment. If we dedicated $3 million to central office repairs, a building that's newer than Mendez Goodnight and the Lamar School, which we still must use because the bond remains unfinished, we could dedicate $250,000 to each and every 11 campuses here throughout San Marcos through a dedicated fund for excellence. I invite you to join the parents and the PTOs who are already working hard, selling frozen cookie dough, tumbler cups, discount cards, and put district money and match that and work with them in local school priorities. Don't let a failure of imagination trap you into a false set of choices. This vote tonight on a new central administration building is critical. Your vote can set the district up as the rising star of Central Texas, drawing family and property taxes to our district who are excited about our commitment to classroom excellence and who see us reversing the trend and actually putting money into the classroom. Or this decision could set our district back tremendously by continuing down the distracting path of administration construction. I personally ask you to vote no on this agenda item related to the new administration building at this time. And I thank you all for all that you do. God bless you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda are reports and information items. The first one is the school board sound bites. Mr. Eads?
Dr. Rodriguez is going to read those for us this time.
At the end of the spring competition, the San Marcos Diamond Line dance team were named state champions of the American State Dance Championships and national champions in the categories of lyrical jazz and production in the Showtime International Nationals held at Moody Gardens in Galveston. As of April 13th, the Lady Rattlers softball team is now 12-0 in District 27 5A play, and the Rattlers baseball team is third in the district. Six HOSA students, future health professionals, had advanced to the state level competition in specific categories. The San Marcos High School Venom Beauty Academy competed in Seguin at Beauty Battle Royale, walking away with 6 trophies and winning over half of the awards.
Thank you. The next item is the construction update. Mr. Eads?
Jay Weston, our director, has continued to, can y'all hear me okay? No. Hear me better now? Okay, Jay Weston, our Director of Maintenance Facilities, provides a report in advance for our board members to look at. So I just want to remind the audience, I saw some new faces. They've already seen this report and they have it available to them. So, Mr. Weston?
Well, as Mr. Reed said, I provide you the report.
A little bit louder, Jay, we can't hear you.
You what?
Can't hear you.
As Mr. Reed said, you have the report in front of you. We're wrapping up several projects. The Student Activity Center, of course, is occupied. There's still some punch list items going on and still some site work going on out there. The pre-K campus, of course, is open and running. There is a new playground there. The multi-campus renovations is still ongoing in some places. There's still a bus loop renovation at De Zavala, Goodnight, the wood shop. The only thing that we need there is the dust collection system, and it should be installed this week. Mendez, the entrance work is ongoing. Of course, at this campus, there's still site work for the renovation or the new classrooms, and there's still a little bit of renovation going on in these restrooms out here. But for the new wood shop and the classrooms, the site work is ongoing, and of course, that's not scheduled to complete until the summer.
And the air conditioning works.
You can see in the pictures that the track and field is finished at the high school. We've used that track a couple times. The track and field at Miller campus and at Goodnight are nearing completion. The track surfaces are on. They still lack striping the tracks and some fence. And here at Miller, there's still a press box that has to be installed and some fencing as well. The Phoenix Learning Center, the site work is ongoing. They're drilling piers. They're working every day. I think that project is moving very well. The food service and technology building at the support services has been continuing to bid, and as soon as the final bids are in, we'll start that project. And the only other thing is, of course, the access control and the safety and security for the campuses, and that's we're starting that work. The contractors are starting. We're trying to get together. There's some coordination between the contractors that did renovations and the people that will be installing the access control. But all that's scheduled to be completed by the end of summer as well. Is there any questions?
Mr. Crowley?
Yeah, I know I'm just looking at the pads for the concrete here at Phoenix, but the plan for the roof once we get up there, is that planning to be a metal roof or a composition?
On the Phoenix? Yes, I believe it's a metal roof. Flat. Bit roof. We've got it's a flat roof, so it'll be tar and gravel roof, sorry. Go ahead.
What is for Mendez, the construction in Mendez? I see that they're still working in the entrance.
On the front entrance at Mendez, yes, ma'am.
And I know I've asked in the past questions regarding this construction phase there, but what has been the delay so much as far as this dragging on?
Well, the delays was it was redesigned, and then it took quite an extended period of time to get the materials in and get that built. It's supposed to be installed within the next couple or 3 weeks.
May I ask, when did we start the project at Mendez?
Well, we started the project at Mendez in probably early July, but not that portion. And
July of
course-
when? Of this past year?
Yes, ma'am. July of
So
14.
prior to July of 2014, there was nothing being done there?
No, ma'am, it's not complete. Because it was redesigned after the project was planned, we determined that the design wasn't going to be what we felt like would be aesthetically look good, so it was redesigned. That took some time. Then procuring the materials for the entrance took a good bit of time as well.
Okay, I'm just, because I'm not into construction, what was the reason for redesigning it?
What was the reason for redesign?
Uh-huh.
Because the design that they had, we didn't think was aesthetically would be very aesthetically pleasing to what San Marcos CISD stood for.
So we went into a bond with a design and we decided we changed the design halfway
the
through?
design-
The design of the bond is not the final, it's just a template that we use. And actually, it was all Karen McGowan's fault because she didn't like it afterwards, and she required us to change it. But the other issue was a cost factor involved with the design aspects. Is that correct, Mr. Smith? And then the third area that we've not addressed is the safety issue. They have to bring in large equipment, and so we have to work when students are not there, and that became a big issue for us.
But wasn't the cost factor part of the bond, wasn't it listed as to how much it was going to be for that campus?
Yes, ma'am. Everything was listed for the campus, and it went out for bid, and the bid came back higher than we anticipated for that item. And so it was a rebid, redesign to lower
So
the
was
cost.
it our fault that it did that, or should it have been something
It's the
that?
construction company's fault for bidding too high. And
And so we
literally,
suffer the consequence to where then we need to go back and redesign it? I mean, I don't know about construction. I'm just asking because this is what I would be asking if somebody was working in my house.
well, the cost estimates, Will, do you want to address that? This is Will Smith with Huckabee Architectural Firm.
If something does come in over budget, it is our responsibility as the architect to go back and redraw that at no extra cost. It may cause a little bit of time delay in the schedule, but our goal at the end of the day is to get that within budget. So it is now within budget, and they're working on it. And it was just that one piece. It wasn't the entire campus.
Well, it just seems like, here we are finishing the school year and I'm still seeing pictures of it under some construction taking place, And I've been asking these questions specifically about this campus. I don't have nothing against Karen. I have nothing against you. I'm just asking about this campus in regards to the issue regarding construction continuously. It seems to me like it's never ending.
Well, I believe they finished the rest of the campus. It's just that one piece, and they've had to phase that in. So.
The courtyard has been redone in there. There's new canopies
So
in
is
there.
it going to be finished before school is finished, or is it going to be finished until after school is finished?
It should be finished by the end of this month or first week in May.
This particular project was part of 6 campuses, and they started last summer. So
And
they
it's beyond me because I don't see why is it that we went in that, but that's neither here nor there. It's just I'm trying to understand why we had so many construction pieces going on, when maybe we should have been focused in one here and finished one and gone to the other one, but that's just me. But this has been on dragging, and so for me, I'm just asking.
Again,
I'm
like
structured
Mr.
and I
said,
go
there
from
was-
one project to the next to finish one thing.
Well, all the campuses were renovated there's 5 campuses renovated this summer. This portion of this campus, we redesigned, so that took some long time to procure. And then, as Mr. Eads stated, there's some work that can't be done while school is taking place. And so they're having to perform some of that work on the weekends, or a lot of that work on the weekends.
So let me just ask another question in closing. All these projects that are going on, are we close to, it seems like I always ask this question, are we at some point close to finishing these projects?
This project at Mendez?
Not just this project, but all these projects. Are we anytime close to coming to an end to all the projects that are going on?
On the summer renovation projects that we started last summer, all of them should be complete by the middle of May, except for this Miller campus where we're just started the site work for building new classrooms and a new wood shop.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the academic update.
Okay, the next three items, we have Dr. Guerra is going to participate. I'm sorry? Oh, I jumped ahead. I'm sorry, academic.
Are we going out there? Or are we sitting there?
Dr. Rodriguez, would you like the board to go down?
Oh, okay.
Is it?
Screen's not picking up. Let you open it. I think everyone, the board members and superintendent and board president have this copy at your table. We didn't want you to have to get up and come out here and watch the presentation and come back today. So
Thank you.
I want to take a brief moment to introduce you to, first of all, one of our science instructional coaches at the secondary level. His name is Hubert Ham, with us tonight. And we want to take a small glimpse into a project that he's been working on lately that was very fruitful and very good for our kids. He worked with the SACNES organization from Texas State University recently. It stands for Society for Advancement of Hispanics, Chicanos, and Native Americans in Science. And so a lot of times, and he worked with Dr. Betancourt, by the way, in that program to bring it to Miller Junior High. A lot of times when we work with organizations in colleges, people will want to come in and present demos for our kids. They will want to show our kids something. It's very seldom that people will come in and work with us in a way that really engages the kids and aligns what they're doing with what we're doing at the schools in terms of the TEKS and what we're supposed to be teaching our kids. He spent time working with Dr. Betancourt, making those alignments, and it was a huge success. They were collaborative. They were aligned with what we were doing. The kids were engaged. It was the beginning of a relationship here at Miller while he worked with the 8th grade. We hope to work with other campuses and other grade levels in the future with that particular group of kids to form a stronger collaborative network. He's got a couple of pictures and he wants to say a few words about the project that they went through recently.
Hi. So basically I reached out to them early in fall, and they're trying to get funding together, and we basically went back and forth and met a few times at Texas State to create the activities, the actual stations, the lab, practical that they would get. The students get to answer questions and go through objectives, and they basically worked with me and let me kind of guide some of the conversation to kind of where we wanted to go and what we wanted to give the students for learning opportunities. And they were able to give back and give us some great ideas and labs and bring resources that we don't have at the middle schools. And some we don't actually have at the high schools too. They brought a lot of cool stuff, and the kids loved it. You know, they made their own little polymer bouncy balls to talk about organic compounds, different elements, periodic trends, chemical changes, tons of different things. And we're hoping in the future that we can, like you said before, bring it to other campuses and keep working with them and refine it. And also we do have a STEM open house at Texas State that we've kind of worked together. I think we got the buses approved, so we will be taking some students from all 3 campuses to look at different STEM careers and look at the laboratories that they have at Texas State and talk about college. So we're very excited about doing that in a couple weeks.
That's about it. We just want to let you know there are good things going on,
And this is exactly the type of collaborative partnership that we want to build with our community. So, thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a pre-kindergarten staffing ratios.
Next three items, Dr. Guerra is going to be presenting. Last month, the board requested some information regarding staffing ratios at the pre-K, and so Dr. Guerra.
Thank you, Mr. Eads. Good evening, board members. Last month, information was requested regarding providing a 15-to-1 pupil-teacher ratio at pre-K. A study of our current new facility revealed that if we were to lower pupil-teacher ratio to 15-to-1, we actually would not have enough classrooms for just the existing number of students that we have, because it would require 26 classrooms, which is more than what we have. So a second option was looked at to add an instructional assistant to every one of the existing classrooms, which would add 6 additional instructional assistants. The estimated cost of doing that for the upcoming year is $135,000. Any questions?
I have a question. So when you say lowering it to 15-to-1, we would not have enough rooms. If we took the students that we have now and used those extra rooms, what would the total be? What ratio would we have? Would it be 16, 17, 18-to-1?
If we took, I did not.
Okay, so you say currently there's 18 classrooms serving 376 students. Pre-K was built on a premise of 22-to-1. 5 classrooms available that can be used. So let's say we brought in the 5 extra classrooms to be used and divided out the kids that we had, what would the ratio be?
I didn't do that math. It's 376 divided by
And
18.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't calculate that.
Ms. Garza, are you there? How many actual classrooms do you have that you can use for instruction? Is it 23 or 22?
Yes, and we do have some additional classrooms that if we did not use them for the science lab or garden, we could actually turn those into classrooms. Quick math in my head tells me it'd be 20 to 21-to-1.
Well, it's 16.34.
376.
Yeah,
Okay.
16.34.
16.3, okay.
All right. Thank you. I don't have my calculator with me, and I don't want to do that right now on
I didn't
on
bring mine
paper,
up
but-
either.
But my concern is, and I know, when we push to get this passed, to have a center that was pre-K, I was always hoping, this is the way that we are going to be able to change the future by focusing on the pre-K kids now, so that as they go through the system, they'll have success. And I think at 22-to-1, I don't see how that will accomplish the goals that really we want to accomplish. I think that we need to have a lower ratio, and I also do not believe that a teacher's aide, as valuable as they are, is not the same as a teacher. A teacher, that 16-to-1, I would be much more in favor of having it 16-to-1 if that's what it has to be, than 20 or 22 or whatever number. When you look at those little kids, if you have a 22-to-1 ratio, I don't think you're going to be able to educate as much as you will be trying to teach kids how to stand in a line and be able to sit at a table by the end. I want kids to be able to have success in pre-K so that as they go through the system, they will be successful throughout. And I don't see how having something higher than 16-to-1 will really get the goals that we wanted.
Okay.
The next item is the elementary staffing ratios.
Again, every year when we present the need for waivers to the board, it's been requested, what would it take to staff at 22-to-1? So you have a chart there. It's based on the projected enrollment on the new attendance zones that were adopted last month. You see the projected number of students at each campus, the number of teachers that they currently have, the number of teachers it would take at a 22-to-1 ratio and the number of teachers it would take at the current staffing ratio at 22-to-1 average with no more than 24 in a classroom. The information is there. We will need some direction from the board at a very soon, near future board meeting as we are getting ready to staff classrooms as we speak.
And also, we want you to be aware, sometimes when we ask for the waiver, it's because of limitation of class size. There are classrooms that are available, and we have situations where students will move in, and it may put us to 23-to-1. It may be a temporary because they move in or move out. And if we held firm to 22-to-1 with no waivers, there's the potential that we'd have a student that would move into the district, and they are going to attend Mendez, as an example, and they would not be able to go there because there's no waiver available to us. Another issue could be 3 of our campuses last year, or is it 3 or 4, that we don't even have any classroom space available. There's no more additional classrooms. So there's another reason for the waiver. It's not always just to keep the ratio to 22-to-1. It's also to allow us some flexibility when it comes to classroom management of the actual building size itself and the classroom itself.
So to go to 22-to-1, we'd have to add 12 teachers, and to keep it as it is, we'd have to add 4 teachers. Is that correct?
Correct. Just normal growth is going to necessitate an additional 4 elementary teachers at the current staffing pattern. If we go to a 22-to-1, we'll need to add 12, which is 8 additional. Ms. Hanson, I think Ms. Costilla is...
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Costilla?
I hate this setup because I always have to look at the other. For the number of years that I've been here, Lolly, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm sorry. Okay. We've gone through, maybe this thing is not working.
Yeah, you just have to speak
You have to
closer
speak
to it.
right into it.
We've gone through these waivers continuously. I think that at some point in time, we need to start thinking outside the hat, and rather than because of situations that have occurred in the past or we're planning for growth or whatever, I think that we need to rethink that. And I think somebody needs to put a plan into place and bring it to us. This waiver thing is not something, we're spending money in other things rather than in the classroom. And while we have made some strides, look at where we are academically. Somewhere along the line, talking about pre-K, putting those classrooms in smaller ratio, I think is where we need to be. Now we go into the elementary staffing ratios, it makes it worse. We need to start thinking, and we need to be more proactive rather than just, well, this is something that we're planning for, and this is basically the way we've done it in the past. I cannot support that anymore, because we spend so much money elsewhere that we need to spend it in the classroom with either hiring more teachers and making those classrooms smaller rather than 23 or 24 in a classroom. 22 already is too much. So I'm just voicing my opinion on this because of the fact that it's on here, and I really truly believe we need to move forward in another direction.
The only direction to move forward in is to hire the additional teachers, and that has always become a budgetary issue, and we'll do whatever the board directs us to do.
Dr. Allen?
How do these classrooms have instructional assistants, aides, et cetera, when they're over the 22?
No, ma'am.
Is that a possibility to consider it when we go above that?
It is such a fluid thing that one class could be over one day, and then a student leaves and it's another class that's over.
Mr. Crowley?
Yeah, and I was going to say, and Judy had said at a meeting, I don't know, sometime back, talking about, I'm sorry, thank you, Lolly, talking about that 22-to-1, that the 22-to-1 wasn't a scientifically backed number. That was kind of a number that was arbitrarily, picked by the legislature. And I understand, as much as I don't like sitting up here and approving these waivers, but I certainly understand also that when all of a sudden you have a 23rd child hit that classroom, our choices, if we don't have a waiver, is saying, okay, now let's hire another teacher at approximately $50,000 plus benefits a year, and then that student may only be in that classroom for 1 week, or through other fluidity through the district, we may no longer need that. So, I mean, I do think the waivers have helped us be able to manage some of those things across the district. And again, I think if there was, a study in this magic number that things are really happening so much better at 22 versus 23 or 21, and I just don't think that data's out there.
Well, maybe we should look at the possibility of hiring some extra teacher assistants to be able to go into the different classrooms that are over and assist however the teacher feels. Maybe that's a possibility to look at that as a way of helping to reduce that ratio.
But a teacher assistant is not a teacher.
But they go through the same training as a lot of our teachers do. They go through the same training in the district. I know it's not exactly the same, but it's a
not. I mean,
qualified, educated assistant for that teacher.
For the number of years that I did child care licensing, I saw teachers in the classroom, so-called teachers, with their assistants, and there's no way that that assistant can really replace a teacher.
Dr. Allen?
I do think at least we could take a look at it because I understand the flexibility. May need it now, may not, maybe it's third grade this week and next week it's a fourth grade. But I do think if there's some way that they could have some extra help in the classroom, could be a way to help with that. I just think it's worth considering.
Right. I was just suggesting it as guidance as we're going into the budget process.
Next month, we'll bring back to you basically our recommendation for you, because if we are going to hire additional staff, we need to hire. I said next month, we'll bring back to your recommendation, because we are going to hire additional staff. We need to start the process next month.
Mark?
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yeah. When we do that study, can we see it with actual teachers to where we have a few extra teachers or the teachers' aides? To where we can
I'm sorry, Mr. Gonzalez, I couldn't hear you.
To where we can add a few extra teachers that can go from room to room wherever they're needed.
Teachers or teacher assistants?
Teachers can't move. Teachers or teacher assistants?
Teachers. Teachers can't move?
Teachers are assigned a class.
Okay.
So the way the state requires you to report it, if you have a floating teacher, you can't count them in the pupil-teacher ratio. You only count the teachers that are actually assigned a classroom. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
If I added a floating teacher, it's like adding a resource teacher or a Title I teacher. They can't be counted in the ratio.
Okay.
Crowley?
Yes. So when you're looking at some of the teachers that get funded through compensatory education and things like that, then if they're, for instance, maybe a resource teacher for math or reading or something like that, they're not part of this ratio that we're looking at
Correct.
here.
It is only classroom teachers.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 2015-16 employee compensation proposals.
What we did was, in our first meeting, we started reviewing this. We were comparing it to our comparative groups, who we truly compete with in compensation. And we were towards the bottom, or at the bottom, on our contribution to the health benefits. And also, at one point in time, we were the top of the policy for salaries, but over a 4-year period, everyone gave raises, and that put us towards the bottom of this salary schedule again. And I asked Dr. Guerra to present it where it would put us at the top of the current salary structure. Now, we have to realize that our outlying districts will be giving raises, and so we're using their last year's data. So, go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, so we've presented 4 scenarios there for you. Scenario number 1 puts the starting teacher salary at $46,000, which would put us at the top of our surrounding districts, or our market, as we like to call it. It would require a 5% increase for all employees. The average teacher increase would be $2,700 and a cost of $2.834 million. Scenario number 2 would bring the starting teacher salary to $45,000 a year, which would require a 3.8% across the board on their midpoint increase. The average teacher increase would be $2,000, and that would cost $2,092,958. Scenario number 3 would put us around the middle right now, but keeping in mind that all surrounding districts are also planning to give pay increases, we'd probably end up at the bottom again. But that would require a 2.5% increase. It would give teachers the $13.50 annual increase and cost $1,384,539. And then scenario number 4 would keep the current starting salary of $43,000, would give teachers their step increase, meaning they just roll up to the next step, would give all other employees 1% of their midpoint. The average teacher increase would be $556, and the cost would be $464,967. So that's salaries only. Then we also looked at benefits.
Can I ask you one
Questions?
question?
Yes.
When you talk about increasing for all employees, that's everybody in the district?
Yes, ma'am.
What about teachers who are topped out?
We'd add another step.
Okay.
It's all,
So even custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, bus drivers.
it's all based,
Everybody.
it would be a percentage of their midpoint for their pay grade.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Mr. Crowley?
Even if those people were above the TASB salary survey or whatever, they would still get increases?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so currently, moving on to health insurance scenarios, currently we contribute, well, between the district and the state, we contribute $237 a month to whatever insurance plan the employee chooses. We currently have 756 employees participating at a cost at roughly $2.1 million a year. If we increase the monthly contribution to $325, which would make Active Care 1 HD available at no cost to our employees, that would increase our contribution by $88. For the current 756 employees, it would cost $2,948,400. Now, you have to assume that when you're going to make the insurance more affordable for employees, and in this case, totally affordable, you have to assume that more employees are going to participate. So we assume just a 10% increase in participation, or another 75 employees, which would add $292,500 for a total projected increase of $1.1 million, just about. Now, if we add $44 a month, yes, sir.
Before you do, just to make sure it's clear, the added cost is $798,336.
Correct.
With this
I'm sorry,
10%.
yes, that's the total, yes.
Saw some head shaking there. So-
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, if I misread that, I apologize. The added cost would be $798,336, plus the cost for the added 75 employees, for a total of added cost of a little over $1 million. If we increase the contribution by $44 per month, which is the halfway point right now, it would cost the employee $44. For the 756 employees, then it would be $2.5 million. The added cost would be $399,168. For the additional 75 employees, it'd be $252,900, for a total increased cost of $652,068. Keeping in mind that these projections are based on the current TRS active care rates. We don't know what those rates are going to be until June. The TRS board will not announce that until June, so it's hard to project or make recommendations when we don't know what the rates are going to be. That's just for the current plan.
Okay. Mr. Crowley?
Yes. Well, you didn't happen to look at what the district would have to pay to go to the Active Care 2 for just the employee?
No, it's almost cost prohibitive, because the Active Care 2, it's 200 and something, it's $318, so that's what we would have to add.
I'm sorry, but it says increased monthly contribution of $325.
That's for Active Care 1 HD. That's what Active Care 1 HD costs, the total costs.
And you said, I thought you said.
The employee cost of Active Care 1 HD is $88.
Okay, thank you.
So the employee cost for, the total cost for Active Care 2 is in the neighborhood of $500 and something a month.
And there's been talk that they may just go to one plan and just be offering one plan, so we wouldn't have an opportunity to select. We won't know that until June.
Yes, there is a lot of talk in the state about going to just a high deductible plan with perhaps the option of an HSA, health savings account. And on the following page, you have the comparison of what different districts contribute to their employees' health insurance. You have the same districts we use to compare salaries, and in this case, you do see that we are at the bottom,
Not just the bottom, but way bottom.
way below. I
This is
agree.
embarrassing.
I just, Ms. Hanson, I just want to say, since it's my last meeting, as I do hope that we increase this contribution, because I think it is, healthcare costs going up, and we have not increased it, and I think that their comments about that is we give them a pay raise, but if their health insurance is going up, that they're not benefiting. So I just hope that we're able to increase it based on a lot of the other factors, but I do hope to see that go up.
I agree. I think it's important to cover their insurance. I think that, and of course, looking at pay raises, but I think it's very important to cover their insurance. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of consent agenda items. We have A, approval of the minutes for the regular scheduled board meeting on March 30th, 2015, and the special called board meeting on April 6th, 2015. B, budget amendments. C, consider resolution extending depository contract. D, approve instructional materials allotment and text certification 2015-16. E, consider approval of travel for San Marcos High School HOSA students to Anaheim, California, June 24th to 29th, 2015. F, approval for San Marcos High School band to travel to Disneyland in Los Angeles, California, June 6th through the 9th, 2016. And G, consider acceptance of donation from Crockett Elementary PTO. Do we have a motion? Dr.
So
Allen?
move. Oh, second.
So Dr. Allen has moved. Mr. Mayhew has seconded. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your
Sorry,
hand.
can I ask one question about one item on
Well,
the consent?
we have to pull it.
Okay, do you mind pulling that, please?
You want to pull F? Okay, so Dr. Allen, is it okay to?
That'd be fine.
Amend your motion to everything except for item F?
Yes, that'd
Okay.
be fine.
Same with the second.
Second, thank you. All those in favor of items A, B, C, D, E, and G, please raise your hand. 7-0. Item F is pulled by Mr. Crowley. Your question?
I just had a question. I just thought about the incident recently where a number of people were infected with measles, going up to Disneyland. Is, from a school's perspective, I don't know, Superintendent Eads, do we, look at that, or do we look at that kids are vaccinated, or,
I have not. I have not looked at.
You need to speak, yeah. into your
I'm
mic.
sorry, I just asked about the recent outbreak of measles up at Disneyland, and I just asked, does the district have anything in place about looking at, when we're going out like that, whether our students are
Well,
vaccinated?
we require shots of all students, to enroll.
There are waivers and things, yeah. I just,
To answer your question, no, we have not done that in the past.
that's
And
all I have.
I did read that Disneyland has been cleared of it, but we would have no clue what was happening in the future or wherever. I mean,
Especially not this.
well,
year,
right.
next
So I just think that that would be impossible to protect against everything. But good news is Disneyland has been cleared from that outbreak.
year. Okay, do we have a motion on item F?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Crowley has moved.
Second.
Mr. Mayhew has seconded. All those in favor of item F, please raise your hand. 7-0. Next item are items for action. A is consider plans for construction of the new central office facility. Mr. Eads?
Last month, there were several questions asked, and so we brought back Will Smith and Karen, our CFO. At this time, they're going to do a presentation, and hopefully we'll answer your questions.
Attached in front of you, there is a copy of the presentation. I've been told that the projector isn't working, so I apologize for those in the audience who aren't going to be able to see the presentation. But basically, the presentation is kind of a follow-up from last week, and it's also to answer some questions that was presented from last week. On the first page, last week we brought forth to you the purpose...
Last month, Karen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, last month.
Oh, last month, I apologize. Brought forth to you the reasons why we were proposing a new facility. And the reasons for that were, one, because we had the audit from the Texas Education Agency that was requiring us to bring the building up to code and to ADA standards. And also we've had 2 reviews of the foundation at that current facility, which specifically states all the problems that we are currently having with the foundation. Now, please remember that the study was done a year ago from the Texas Education Agency, and we're bringing it back to light as the responsibility of the CFO to make sure that the board is well informed of all of our facilities, and education was put first, and so now it's coming to the end of the year, so we're wanting to reiterate some of the stuff that the district does have on the table. Also, I just wanted to bring to light a little history. I went back and did a little research. Back in 2000, as part of a whole package, a bond package of the amount of $78,600,000 support services complex, which was part of the central office, the bus barn, and the Lamar Central Office Annex, was brought forth to the voters for a proposition. This proposition was unsuccessful. So in August of 2000, a citizen advisory task force was formed, and in that there was 33 members of that task force, and they concluded that non-academic buildings need to be financed with alternate sources and should not be funded through bonds. So in the year 2001, there was 2 additional propositions. Central office was not included in that, but both of those propositions were unsuccessful as well. So in 2004, these propositions were all brought back forth again, once again to the citizens to vote. And at this time, there was a 3rd proposition that included the central office building for $2.9 million, and that was at a cost of $1.10 per square foot. So it's only gone before our citizens one time as a standalone vote. But I guess we've heard from the Citizens Advisory Task Force that this is something that should be funded through alternate sources. Okay, so on the next page, we did bring back the cost to renovate the facility, and that cost was a total of $2.7 million. Now, one of the other things that wasn't in this presentation that was asked about was we also had to include the cost to rent the facility, a new facility for a central office, because remember, we will have to vacate the building. It will have to be completely redone on the inside, and so we had to get out. We'd have to be out of the building, rent additional space. We'd have to have the cost for that move, and also move technology. So the cost, we would call a realtor right now to find out what commercial rental space was going for. And so right now that would be approximately $7,200 a month. So at 12 months, and with the cost of the move and technology, that cost is $113,900, which would bring the cost estimate to about $2.8 million to renovate the current facility. If you go to page 2, we will address the current square footage. On page 2, the question that was brought up at the last presentation was the square footage. We currently have the curriculum and instruction offices that are located behind Goodnight Middle School at 5,400 square foot. We have the central office complex at 6,521 square feet. We have the public information's office, the PIMS and the student records, that's located at the current Lamar complex, and that's at 2,639 square foot. We also have the special education department, and we do have a training room over there that's located at Mendez Elementary School for 4,379 square foot for a total current square footage uses of $18,939. I'm sorry, 18,939 square foot, sorry. Okay, if you move to the next page, and I apologize to the audience. The estimated cost to build option 1 was the option that we brought forth to the board at the last meeting. And so that was to construct a facility for 24,440 square foot. Now, what that would encompass is all of the facilities that we just said on the first page, but we did add a little bit of square footage to that facility, which is about 1,000 square foot to the existing boardroom, another $500 to the special ed offices. You would have to have a mechanical and a technology room, which is an MDF, so adding those facilities would add about another 1,000 square foot to the building. $900 square foot on the restroom space for the additional restrooms, 500 square foot in additional office space, and another 1,000 square foot to curriculum instruction for their instructional coaches. And the reason why the additional square footage for CNI for those instructional coaches is right now we have about 20 instructional coaches. They all go into one room, and right now they have tables, and they're all sitting at tables. Some of them sit on the floors, and they have to share space. So with building 2 rooms where we can have individualized little, I guess, cubicles, which you would say, so that each one of them would have a desk and an area to go and collaborate, based on what they need to get done. That's why the additional square footage. Same thing with our special ed. That would allow them to have additional room, because right now they do share office space as well. So each one of them would have their own little, I guess you would say, cubby. So that was for the additional square footage. That was option 1, and that was what was presented to the board at the last meeting. If you go on to the next page, based on some of the questions that were given.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. The space for the public information officer, PEEM, student records located at Lamar, I thought that everything that was at Lamar was already under construction at the support services facility.
We brought that forth to you. The facilities would not be moving in because there wasn't enough square footage. We would have had to increase the square footage. We brought that to y'all. And so because the pad had already been built, because we were building that for a 10,000 square foot facility. And remember, when you look at the facility, the actual square footage, you've got to include circulation and walls, which includes hallways and the different wall barriers. So with keeping the current square footage the way it was, we didn't want to add to that facility that had already been constructed by the contractor. That's why we decided that facility would go in with or we'd find another space for them.
Yeah, I was going to say, so if this administration building doesn't pass, then where would that person go?
Well, we're going to move them over to Mendez.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to option 2. The square foot changes to 19,140. And the changes to that, we would remove the special education, the PEEMS, the student data and PEEMS, and the additional office space. Those items would be removed. I'm sorry. Those items would be removed from option 2. And then the next page you will see is option 3.
Just to tell the audience, and that cost would be 4.675.
Yes, $4,675,000. Then option 3 would be a total square footage of 13,488, and that would be removal of the same offices from option 2, but option 3 would include removal of the curriculum and instruction offices. They would remain also where they're at. So those were, and so the total cost of that is $3.5 million.
I have a question first.
Dr. Allen?
Yes, my question is, if we move those offices out of like Mendez and behind Goodnight, et cetera, then that does free up space at those campuses for potential growth that they might need. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, because I think that is important, because if we go with a smaller building, then that's not available for the future.
And if you also remember, I believe it was in December, we brought forth the Phoenix that had been bid out for the 3rd time, and we had to reduce, in order to get Phoenix back into budget, we did have to reduce the square footage, and so we brought that forth back to the board, and it was decided upon that time. We even went back for the option to add 2 more classrooms, and at that time, we decided to leave as is, and then for future growth, for DAP, we would move that out of that facility, and that future site could go back into where we currently have curriculum and instruction.
Okay, I have one more question. The bond that was in 2004, that it was a separate proposal, 2.9
$9 million.
2.9 million. How big was that facility supposed to be? Do you know?
It doesn't give me a square footage. The only thing that I could see in there that it did say was construction cost at $1.10 a square foot. So that's all the information
All
I
I
have.
remember, though, it was, we were going to consolidate all of these buildings all these offices. I remember that was an issue.
It did say curriculum and instruction and central administration, but it doesn't give me, I couldn't find the detail. I'm sure that if we probably went back and researched, I could find, but from everything that I could find, that's all I could locate at this time.
Well, I just remember is that because that's been a real concern about having these offices spread throughout the district for that. So I'm thinking that if it didn't include all of it, it was most of it. But what strikes me is the longer we wait to do something, the cost continues to go up. I don't think we're ever going to see the costs go down.
Correct.
And I'm going to say, for me, personally, it's just like Bowie now. I mean, hindsight's wonderful. Wish we had more classrooms at the pre-K. I think sometimes is that we are short-sighted in not building adequately for the future. So I think that that's real important. Sometimes I think we let a price drive us and we're short-sighted in that. What I'd like to do is, so that we can discuss it, typically we discuss and then make a motion, but I'm going to make a motion and then we can discuss it and then to vote. But I'm going to move that we, the option number one, to build it at the 24,440 and to fund it out of fund balance. I'm going to make that motion so we can discuss it.
So that's option number one?
Option number one.
And just to clarify, Ms. Griffith, you said $1.10, but it's actually $110 a square foot.
I'm sorry, yes.
I was going to say, that's really cheap. Let's get it.
$110 a square foot, and now that's at $190. So if you look at, if it was based on the 24,440 square foot, that's almost a $2 million difference over a 10-year span.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure everybody in the audience
Okay, I'm sorry.
understood that. Dr. Allen has moved to go with option number one, and Ms. Villalpando has seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Costilla?
I have several questions, but you're saying at the last page, it says offset by sale of property. We're taking it out of fund balance? We're taking out of fund balance and then it's offset by the sale of property? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And what
my last
properties are
slide-
those? Or property or properties? What properties are those?
Right. I have had direction to look at some property that we have at Mendez, and also, like I said, the current central office site. If we do vacate that, there are some options with that site. So those two facilities and those two land sales could offset, depending on the cost, offset the difference in the cost. And those will be presented to the board at a later date.
Okay. The other question, Karen, is that given the report, I want to focus on the report from TA. Did we ever contact or had communication with TA regarding, first of all, when you're talking, I think you mentioned this the last time about being cited and being fined. Have we asked them as to if we don't proceed with this, how soon they're going to cite or fine or both? Do we know that?
I do not know that. They could come back in. Normally, it's when they do an audit, which could be a follow-up audit in 3 to 5 years. They could or they could not, but you could get someone from the community that comes in and files a report with us from the Office of Civil Rights, and then that could also trigger an audit. Now, they may or they may not fine us. That would be up to TEA or the Office of Civil Rights if they wanted to. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but I don't think that excuses our responsibility to have a building that's ADA compliant for our parents, students, teachers, and community.
Do we know how many schools, and we have over 1,000 school districts in Texas. So do we know whether there are several schools in our own situation like us? And, are they all jumping and building buildings?
I couldn't answer that question. I don't have the answer to that.
I meant to call TA, and maybe I will, because that's important for me to know, as far as what are really the consequences. I mean, we know we've been told about a report, but we really don't know. I mean, I don't know whether they even do waivers. Maybe they might waive a time limit until maybe we could put something out like this to our community, to our registered voters. I know that our superintendent last week or the last month mentioned that maybe the reason that they didn't pass was because they didn't have all the information. Well, maybe if they had all the information about the current status of the building, it might be a different outcome. I don't know. I wanted to find out from TA what is their time limit. You know, whether they're going to come next month at the end of the year or what, if we don't approve having to build a new construction or do a new administration building.
Well, I mean, the two things on the table are to renovate the current facility or build a new one. So just bringing to light why the need and why we're bringing this forth.
And Ms. Castillo, and also, it wasn't triggered just for the TA audit. That was not the original trigger for this. We started the conversation over 3 years ago, or at least I did over 3 years ago, with the board about the need for consolidating all of our non-instructional groups, departments together for efficiency. The other issue that triggered it this past year was our growth. We are 318 students more than we were the previous years, and we anticipate more growth. And we need to maximize and be able to give our facilities to our campuses. The other issue that comes into play is we get complaints from the community and parents. They come to central office. They believe that central office is the service for everything. We have to send them to different places frequently. We'll have to send them to Goodnight, behind Goodnight, or we'll have to send them to Phoenix to pick up records. And so it's really not reflective of what we're serving. We are serving central support services in 5 or 6 different locations.
Mr. Crowley?
I was just going to say that there's just too many things in here that strike me. Like, for instance, we're looking at, all these estimates are estimates from the architect. I still have an issue with, $450 square foot to renovate bathrooms from the last meeting, but I know the superintendent did show me the estimate of the current facility at LBJ and the Bonham, and I'm not a realtor, but I have a hard time believing that someone would pay because of the location in the neighborhood, because of issues with zoning. I have a hard time that spending $3 million for that facility, probably having to tear the buildings and then starting to go up from scratch, that there's a big enough to put apartments if it could be done in that neighborhood, or whether it was single-family homes, which are mostly in that neighborhood. I question that we will get that kind of money out of a facility like that. I have another idea. I say that if we're really interested in it, let's put it on the ballot in November and let the voters decide.
Well, I'm glad you brought that point up, because we did bring this to our current contractor, S&P, to look over the unit costs for a second. I mean, if you have known, no offense against Huckabee, but they have been underestimating a lot of these. So we did bring these to S&P, and they did confirm that on some of the numbers they're actually high, and on some of these numbers they're actually low. So when you overall aggregating together, they did feel that this number was a good estimate. Now, I did use someone that did a contractor that was already in place, because I didn't want to get an outside contractor in case we decided to bid this proposal out. So, but I did get confirmation from a contractor that these prices looked reasonable and customary.
Ms. Villalpando?
Karen, my question is on the category of all the facilities that we're trying to put together, all the departments that we're trying to bring together.
Okay.
And the total square footage is 18,939.
Yeah, 18,939.
Okay, and on option 2, the total square footage is 19,000. Is that correct?
Correct.
So that would accommodate what we're trying to do is accommodate all our different departments.
Right. So with option 2, what we're doing is we're eliminating, with option 1, we have all the outside facilities coming into one. On option 2, what we're doing is we're eliminating, we're not moving special ed. We're going to keep them at Mendez. The PEMS and the records management, we'll move those over to Mendez, and then there was some additional office space that we were going to put in there for growth, and that would be eliminated. So that's the reduction of the square footage that you see from option 1 to option 2.
So we're still not moving everybody in?
Not under option 2.
Okay.
Mr. Mayhew?
So originally, I was in favor of doing this to move everybody over, but that was back when I thought we had all of that money from the sale of Lamar, and then, I mean, I have a real concern about the offset by sale of property, because the appraisal that we received, I think, it's way out of whack as far as that goes. So I'm concerned about spending that kind of money on a building, quite frankly, because, we're not, I mean, we just looked at salaries and health insurance, and I think there are other priorities that we need to be focused on. I think this would be great, but we spent that money on a different building just this last month. So,
Ms. Henson?
these were 4 options. I guess 3 options. I guess a 4th option would be to build something of the same square footage at the new property. That would be a 4th, a 6,900, or even a 10,000 square foot. A 10,000 square foot.
Which is
looking
option
here-
3.
Well, no, that's a 13,000 square foot.
Well, because it considers, it includes your walls and circulation. So the net square footage of option 3, if you take out walls and circulation, which is about 30% of your square footage, you're netting a 10,000 square foot building. You're netting 10,375 square building.
Can you give us the net on option 2 and option 1?
The net square footage on option 2 is 14,725, and the net square footage on option 1 is 18,800.
Thank you, that helps a lot.
What's number 2 again?
Option 2, the net was 14,725, and option 1, 18,800.
Okay.
Dr. Allen?
Thank you.
A couple of points is that I think to keep in mind too is that first of all is that we have for several years talking about that we're going to take money from fund balance. I don't know that we've ever said that we're going to pay for it 100% out of the sale of property, but we hope to offset quite a bit of it. I also think is that we have a healthy fund balance, and we're not asking the voters to fund it through increase in taxes. And so I think that's very important. I also am very concerned about health insurance and pay raises, but that's a whole different issue. We're not going to fund those out of ongoing expenses out of fund balance. We're talking about 2 different funding sources for those. So I don't think we should need to get those mixed up. Fund balance is for major one-time expenses primarily. We can pay for part of it through sale, whatever we decide to sell. Probably won't bring in all the 5.8 million, but it will bring in a good portion of it. So when we sell whatever it is down the road, then the rest, we'll pay back the fund balance. So I think we have to make sure we're keeping straight the purpose of fund balance versus the purpose of the regular budget.
Mr. Mayhew?
I disagree with the point that we will be able to pay it back when we sell the property.
Just for pay back a portion of it. I don't mean to imply that we would necessarily pay it 100%, but it's been my understanding all along that that was never, we would always take at least part of the cost would have to come from fund balance in the past. So I don't mean to imply that the sale of a property would cover 5.8. We don't know what it would cover.
Well, and perhaps for that reason, maybe we should sell the property first, and then we'll know exactly how much we have and how much will come out of fund balance.
Well, I would just argue as in the meantime the cost is going up, and we still have the issue of our facilities being spread and the issues with central administration.
Mr. Crowley?
I would say that I'd be willing to bet that a new Lexus will cost more in January than it does now, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go out and buy one this year. So I have a question about the the quantity. I guess I haven't heard the square footage about net square footage versus what? I'm used to seeing these things displayed as this is the square footage of the building. What am I not understanding about the floors and the whatever? This one's...
The square footage you're seeing there is the total square footage. That is the number.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
what Karen was talking about, net versus gross, that's just how we determine how much is dedicated to circulation and walls of that total number. But what you're seeing there is the number you want to focus on.
Versus it's the living space in a house versus adding the garage to it. So they're
Dr.
talking
Allen?
about the hallways and
I'm sorry.
such.
I would just say is that if my Lexus is not running or it's about to quit on me, I may be forced to buy, even if I am now.
I have been quiet, but listening to everyone, I have several concerns. I think it's important to consolidate all of our support services so that they can work together more efficiently and effectively and not waste our community's time. But my biggest concern is that we're excluding a group of people from our central office facility by not making it handicap accessible. If you ever got in a wheelchair and tried to enter the building, much less go to the quote-unquote handicap restroom, it's not happening. And so we have a group of students, staff, community members, and parents who are excluded from that building, and that's not right. We can't do that to our community. I think it's important for us, and I went out and did my own little survey. Not professional, people I ran into. I said, if we're buying or spending money for a new central office facility, would you rather us do a bond or take it out of fund balance? And 100%, and again, it's not research-based, said, why would we do a bond if we have the money in fund balance? That was what they told me time after time and again. So that's why I'm supporting option one. Ms. Costilla.
I just wanted to address building Lexuses, whatever the issue is, and once again, I'm going to go to where I've always focused on, and that's in academics. It seems like we're talking about other issues, other people involved, and I'm not saying that our employees are not important, but we up here talking about insurance, I talk about costing salaries, buildings, and we seem to be forgetting that we need to invest in our classrooms. And I don't hear that. I haven't heard that for the number of times that I have been here, that there's not been an issue regarding what we need to do in our classrooms. And we have the results because we haven't done what we need to be doing in our classrooms. So I wanted to throw that out because it seems like everybody's saying something in regards to, looking out for everybody, but are we really looking out for our students?
Well, I would hate to see this board not have the foresight to build the buildings, to take care of our staff and community needs, and instead wait for the OCR or TA to come down and find us and then have to do those things.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody has said that we don't want to address the issues. I mean,
I'm hearing that.
I just don't think it needs to be addressed in a new administration building. I think there can be more due diligence done and a better look at what actual costs are and actually take bids. Like Paul said, put the property for sale, see if we get bids on it. Then we'll know more definitively how much money we're really looking at, and then what the total needs would be financially, how that would be paid for.
Dr. Allen?
Do we have 5.8 million available in fund balance to fund this at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When that is sold, when we make the decision, there's some ifs about, okay, when it is sold, then I'm assuming that whatever the profits would go back into fund balance. What that is, I don't know. But we have the money now to fund it.
Okay, we have a motion from Dr. Allen and a second from Ms. Villalpando to consider plans for construction of new central office facility, option number one. All those in favor, please raise your hand. We have Ms. Villalpando, myself, and Dr. Allen voting for. All those against, please raise your hand. We have Ms. Costilla, Mr. Mayhew, Mr. Crowley, and Mr. Gonzalez voting against. The next item on the agenda is item B, BE local policy, single expenditures over 1 million requiring reading at 2 separate meetings for approval. Mr. Eads?
This was requested by one of our trustees, Mr. Mayhew. Mr. Mayhew?
Thank you. It was actually after last month's meeting when we had 2 presentations, and had we voted that meeting, we could have potentially spent somewhere close to $8.5 million out of fund balance with only, really a 5 to 10 minute presentation on each. And so I thought it would be wise for the future to be able to look at something that other groups do, and that is, that would call for us to amend our BE local policy, which you should have in front of you. And all I really have is one sentence that I would like to put forward as a motion. It actually could be inserted on page 2 of 3, right at the top, after where it says the board member without that board member's specific authorization, then add this particular line, and I'm going to use this as a motion. I move that we add expenditure requests placed on the agenda that total $1 million or more require passage on 2 separate readings on 2 different days. And that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, would you read that again, please?
Yes, it says expenditure requests placed on the agenda that total $1 million or more require passage on 2 separate readings on 2 different days.
Mr. Crowley? Oh, thank you.
I said I'd second that motion.
So Mr. Mayhew has moved and Mr. Crowley has seconded.
I've got a question.
Ms.
For
Costilla?
clarification, Mr. Mayhew, when you're talking about 2 different days, are you talking about, consecutively one day, or are you talking about a time frame? Because the board does not meet on 2 consecutive days. So would you want to rethink it and a different, I'm not sure how we could cover that? Because when you say days, I see us as meeting one day and then the second day. Should we be able to distinguish that second time?
Would you rather add meeting instead of day?
Maybe so, second meeting.
If you want to offer that as amendment, that would be
I offer
fine.
that as an amendment because to me, it's more explicit as to the times that the board meets, because the board doesn't meet one day and then the next day.
Right.
So your amendment would be
I think it's the same thing,
would
but
be to change it, Ms. Costilla, to 2 different meetings? Do
Consecutive
we have a second
meetings.
for that?
I'll second that.
Consecutive meetings.
So Ms. Castillo has moved to amend it to 2 separate meetings, 2 different meetings, and Mr. Crowley has seconded. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hand.
That's just the amendment, right?
Just the
Okay.
amendment, yes, that
I-
passes
I have a
7-0.
question of Mr. Eads. Do you foresee any, and I'm trying to think of, times, would there be ever an emergency where that would be difficult? I mean, would
Yes,
there
ma'am.
be, should we have some sort of I just want to know, could we ever get ourselves in trouble where it'd be tough to have I don't know.
Sure. And I'll address this. Like Mr. Mayhew had pointed out, it was brought up last month in the board meeting, and the board did just what they were supposed to do. They weren't comfortable with making a decision, and they postponed it. So you always had the option of postponing. The issues would come into play would be we have a construction issue, which we have lots of construction going on at this point in time, and we had to make a change. The other item that could impact us is if we had an outstanding obligation that we had to pay that was time sensitive. So, but my recommendation would be to keep it the way it is, and as trustees, you can always postpone items just like you did last month.
perhaps we can add another sentence that says, upon emergency, it can be looked at for one. I'll work on the words here, but there are provisions for emergencies where with 5/7 of the board, you could pass something on one reading. So we could add something like that.
I just have a suggestion is perhaps maybe work on it to take care of those emergencies and maybe then to bring that back.
Well, I wouldn't be bringing it back, Judy, much like you. I will not be here. So, you know,
I think you could
I'd like to go
probably-
ahead and get this done, and I can, while you discuss, I can come up with the language that would certainly cover that.
Mr. Cruz, can you give us some advice on how that would work? The are we talking about the emergency?
Some
Just-
guidance?
Just some guidance on this. This is Juan Cruz. He's our school district attorney.
For the record, Juan Cruz. I think what Mr. Mayhew's talking about, maybe Mr. Eads is talking about, can be worked on in terms of having the expenditures approved on a two-meeting basis, like Ms. Costilla mentioned, with the exceptions of possibly emergency items or approved purchases, approved purchases that have gone through a request for proposal or request for qualification process, because that would take care of your major, let's say, for example, construction contracts. You already know that you have to pay the draw maybe on a 30-day basis. And the third thing also is you also don't want to get yourself into a situation where you have an outstanding invoice, and if you don't pay within 30 days, you start accruing interest or penalties, right? So that could be possibly the third. So it's emergency issues, things that have already been approved through a request for qualifications or request for proposals, or number three, also the issue of any penalties or interest that may be assigned against San Marcos ISD, that the administration take care of it.
What about, because sometimes we've had, I can remember something in the construction we didn't know about, some line had to be moved. I don't remember how much it was, but I mean, if we delayed that then everything halts.
Right.
Is that situation covered? I mean, it was something we didn't know about, but if we didn't move the line, if we didn't approve it, if that cost was over $1 million, would it be covered or not under your scenario?
It would be under, Dr. Allen, under the emergency situation, yeah.
Okay, I just think,
Just so that-
yeah, I just think, you know, defining what is an emergency and what isn't. I just want to make sure that we're not delaying what needs to be done. And in that case, I mean, we had to approve it because of, I know that was last summer.
But I do think that the revision, Mr. Mayhew, belongs in CH local, not BE local. You can still approve it if the board chooses tonight, but it should really be a CH local, not BE local, because CH local talks about your purchasing and acquisitions. I pulled it up while you all were discussing. It says, the board delegates to the superintendent or designee the authority to make budgeted purchases for goods or services. However, any single purchase of goods or services not originally budgeted for cost $50,000 or more, regardless of whether the goods or services are competitively purchased, shall require board approval before a transaction may take place. And then you would add to that, in addition, any purchases over $1 million would require two approvals, two separate board meetings prior to approval, with the exception of those three things that we talked about: the invoices, penalty, the emergency purchases, and then those that have already been approved through a RFQ or RFP.
My only question, would there be any question as controversy of what's an emergency and what's not?
That would be definitely up for the board. That's why when they come for the first reading,
come
and
up every
if the
time.
superintendent
I know.
comes in and
That's
says,
what my
you know,
point
this is
is.
$2 million and we're requesting for the, not to have two separate meetings, but to approve it, then he would justify to the Board of Trustees why this qualifies as an emergency, and obviously the board would approve of it at that time or not.
I would like to ask you, since you're saying that it's under a different CH local, then we can't approve it under this.
It would be the, I mean,
It wouldn't be a BE local then.
it would
think
be
it's
CH
both.
local, Lupe, Margie. It would be CH local that you would approve it. And I know that it was listed under BE local, but, you know, you do have notice to the public in terms of what subject you were going to be discussing, and that's what the Texas Open Meetings is about. So long as the public has fair notice as to what's going to be discussed, that's proper posting.
Changing it from BE to CH
Not
is
substantial, not
It's
substantial.
not substantial?
Yeah.
And-
Okay.
Okay, do you want to
Well-
read your emergency amendment?
Sure. In the in the event of an emergency, the board may suspend this with a 5/7 vote.
Within
5/7? I mean,
Okay.
that'd be a super majority, right? 5/7, or?
It usually just
Or
requires
just an
majority
approval?
vote. It's up to the board if they want to do
We'll just go with
super majority.
just a regular majority vote then, with a majority vote.
And then with the addition, I think also, Mr. Mayhew, if you would allow the two other things that we discussed as well. If it's already a budgeted purchase through a RFP or RFQ, and then also something that would not penalize the school district if they were to pay it over 30 days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll work with Georgianne on fine-tuning that before it makes it into the TASB policy manual.
We have a motion for emergency amendment with the three things that would qualify. Do I have a second? Mr. Crowley, all those in favor of the emergency amendment to suspend the prior motion with a majority vote for the emergency purchases, RFP and RFQ, and invoices that would accrue interest. All those in favor of the emergency amendment, please raise your hand. We have, yes, Ms. Costilla, Mr. Mayhew, and Mr. Crowley. All those against, please raise your hand. We have Ms. Villalpando, myself, Dr. Allen, and Mr. Gonzalez voting against. So that amendment fails. So we have, let's see, where are we? We're back to the original motion with the amendment to change it instead of 2 different days, 2 different meetings. Any further discussion on the original motion?
Okay, so, let me just clarify then. What we just voted was to say that if it's an emergency, we could suspend it and do it. So now we're back where the emergency is not part of it.
Correct.
Okay, originally what you said, okay.
To me, I feel like we're covered with what we have, because if it was a building or something, we don't just vote on it once and that's the end of it. When next phase, schematic design, I believe, is brought to us, we vote and approve that. It could be voted down at that time if we decided we didn't want that. When they also bring to us the price, we vote and approve that. So I feel like we have enough review of these big ticket items that aren't under the original budget that the board approves to be able to take care of those. And I don't think we need to hamper ourselves by adding another policy to this. That's my personal opinion. Anybody else? If not, all those in favor of it would now be CH, local policy, single expenditures over, let me see. Expenditure requests placed on the agenda that total $1 million or more require passage on 2 separate readings on 2 different meetings. Please raise your hand, those that approve. We have Ms. Costilla, Mr. Mayhew, Mr. Crowley. All those against, please raise your hand. We have Ms. Villalpando, myself, Dr. Allen, and Mr. Gonzalez. Okay, do we want to take a break?
Yes.
Please.
Let's take a 10-minute break and come back at 8:10. At that, and we'll restart our meeting.
We're going to start here or go in?
We'll start here and then we'll go in there.
Okay, okay. Are we doing contracts first and then coming? I'm trying to see if I'm taking my computer and.
What time are you there? 8. Oh.
And do that.
8 o'clock.
Okay. Does Georgianne, I'm trying to decide if I'm taking my computer in there for the appeal thing. Do we have it in printout or do I need my
8:10.
computer in there? Do you know? there one back here?
Yes,
Oh
you
my
have to go,
God.
you can't go to those.
Oh, well, I'm following you. What? I may go get a cookie.
I couldn't get to the back one.
Oh, we went to the one back there.
Oh, there's a.
There is one, but there's like 10 people in line, and there's only one little potty there.
Okay, so what do I need to bring?
You want a cookie? Oh, just one?
Those are for you.
He brought them just
I
for
know.
you.
But have one for me. Oh my goodness.
No, my computer plugged in until we go back in there.
Freezing.
I can't get my plug.
do it. Let's get this up going.
It's time. It's 8:10. I call the board back to order. The board members will please join me. It's 8:10. Nope, it's not on. They cut them off again. Everybody left? Well, they cut off the microphones. Where did Lucy go? Mr. Mayhew, Miss Costilla, Mr. Crowley, and Mr. Gonzalez, please join the board. I know, they turned them off. Can I read these out? Are we going to discuss this? Okay. At this time, the board will go into closed meeting. It's not working.
Oh, there you go.
At this time, the board will go into closed meeting as authorized by Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code to discuss discuss renewal of contracts for non-administrative professional personnel for the 2015-2016 school year. B, discussion regarding Miller Middle School principal. And C, discussion regarding Hernandez Elementary School principal. So if the board members will join me in the closed session. Okay, it's 10:34, and we reconvene the board meeting back in open session. This is to take appropriate action on items if necessary as discussed in closed session.
Ms. Hanson,
Mr. Mayhew,
I move to grant the remedies of the grievance regarding JJ as discussed in closed session.
I second that.
so Mr. Mayhew has moved and Ms. Costilla has seconded to grant the remedies as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, raise your hand. We have Ms. Costilla, Mr. Mayhew, Mr. Crowley, and Mr. Gonzalez voting for. Those against, Ms. Villapando, myself, and Dr. Allen. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you, Ms.
Second that.
Villapando. And Mr. Crowley seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand. The meeting is adjourned.